Hello from New Zealand, and this is the 10th of February 2018. And I'd like to talk to you about this question, which is what should pregnant women and birthing women expect from the staff in the hospital, their obstetrician or midwife, either at home or in the hospital. Because I've been involved since 1970, I've watched the trends in childbirth change. In fact, we're now in the third evidence-based maternity trend in my lifetime, since I gave birth actually in 1970. I gave birth in the United States in the hospital. There were no midwives, there were obstetrical nurses in the staff, and there were many things that were done to me that are not done to women now. For instance, being shaved, have an enema. I wasn't allowed out of bed. I wasn't allowed to eat or drink, and that's all changed. So how were the staff back then in 1970? Well, they were on duty for 8 hours. They came in every 2 to 4 hours, and they basically left us alone. They came in to do assessments, monitoring, blood pressure, temperature, listen to the baby's heartbeat. There weren't any fetal monitors back then, so they listened with a stethoscope, and then they left you alone. Then they sometimes came in every 4 hours and checked you. They did an internal, and that internal was done with you flat on your back in the middle of a contraction. It was very unpleasant, without a doubt, but then you weren't allowed out of bed anyway, so labor was more constrained. The obstetrician came in shortly after I was checked in, and then you didn't see him again until you were close to having the baby. And then he delivered the baby, and then the baby was cared for by a pediatrician. That by the time I gave birth last in 1982, I was in a different hospital, and the trend had changed. The whole atmosphere, you're allowed to get up and move around. Staff still only came in periodically. The obstetrician only came in periodically. I've been in a lot of home births, and I'm not a midwife, I'm not a childbirth educator, I'm not a doula, but I've been involved with the childbirth conversation for 45 years. So I've been at many, many hundreds of births and have seen many, many hundreds of care providers. At home, the women are in their own environment, but that doesn't mean that women cope any better with the natural occurring pain of contractions. Nor does it mean that the outcome's always good, or that she doesn't end up transferring to the hospital and then having to deal with the staff in the hospital. Recently, in the last 7 or so years, I've been aware of groups that are trying to improve birth, and that they're trying to get the obstetricians and the midwives and the staffs to, one, really respect women's birth plans, which is very complicated, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and to make certain that everybody treats women respectfully and that women are informed. So those are 3 goals: to inform women, to treat them respectfully, and to respect their birth plans. And this is why, still 45 years later, I, that represent a charitable trust that houses the Birthing Better skills and the families that develop these skills, and the many thousands of families that have used these skills in every type of birth, are just saying we're barking up the wrong tree. Until we can grow a skilled birthing population, the expectations that we have of the people who care for us in birth are overblown and way out of proportion to what they can do. And why is that? Well, first of all, when a birthing woman, let's say, for instance, goes to the hospital, she only sees herself. She isn't necessarily aware of the fact that on that floor at that time, there may be 10, depending on the size of the hospital, 10 or 20 women in labor at the same time with a very small staff. So she only thinks of herself, but doesn't think of the fact that these staff people have to care for lots of people. Most birthing women also don't think that the staff people have families outside. So you have no idea when you go in whether that midwife or obstetrical nurse, that the staff, has a sick child at home, or whether their mother-in-law has just been admitted to the hospital in acute heart failure. You know nothing about them. So the assumption is it's all about us as pregnant women, which means that we don't have very much empathy for the people who care for us. So we expect us to be cared for at a higher level than we are necessarily willing to care for the people who are caring for us. And this is very much why birth recently, since birth plans became the norm, has become treated as an event very much like a wedding. So when women are getting married and they're planning the wedding, it's all about them and they expect everybody to cater to them. You know, there's programs called bridezillas. Well, the fact is in birth, women have come to believe it's all about them. So their expectation is that everybody know how to treat them the way they want to be treated. And this is why if we had skilled women, they would stop focusing on that and focus more on how they cope or manage on a moment-to-moment basis while they're giving birth. If they're at home, the expectation is that the midwife will be with them the whole time, with no regard to the fact that this midwife also may have a sick child at home, or it may be that midwife's child's birthday. And so we call them saying, well, you told us you were continuity of care, that we can call at any time. So we expect you to come to us. No regard to the fact that there may be another woman in labor at the same time, or that a woman that she helped have her baby yesterday has a baby that's in ICU unit or is having difficulty or anything like that. So the expectation since the 1980s has been that birth is all about us. When I gave birth in 1970, there wasn't that expectation. We coped with whatever went on at our birth. We didn't always like it. However, what we also realized is, yeah, well. I mean, it's as simple as that. Yeah, well. So what if we didn't like it? That wasn't the worst thing in the world. So if someone was rough to us, we didn't like it, but oh well. If we needed something and we didn't get it the way we wanted it, we just went, okay, this was part of it, but not anymore. Now it's like that rudeness or that unpleasant internal done with me lying down during a contraction, that now is the basis for women feeling traumatized after birth. And this is directly due to the fact that we lack skills as society. We see birth as an event or something that happens to us that we have no control over. We need to switch to see it as an activity that we do and that we can become highly skilled to do that activity. Now, when I was highly skilled to birth my son in 1982, he was born 8 weeks premature. I went into a strange hospital. Did they want to fiddle with me? Oh yeah, they did, because they didn't want an 8-week premature baby born, because they honestly thought he was going to be a 1 pounder or something like that. Well, he wasn't. He was 5 pounds, because I could feel his butt, I could feel his head from inside, and I knew he was a big baby, and he was a big baby. However, and on his due date, he was 11 pounds 9 ounces. He was 5 pounds when I gave birth to him, so in some ways, ooh, okay. So they fiddled with me. Did I like every way that they fiddled? No. Did they allow me out of bed? No. Did they give me an IV? Yes. Could I have used that as an excuse to say, I don't like how they're treating me? Sure I could. But I had skills. So I just went, that's the way it is. And that's what Birthing Better Families, when we developed the skills, discovered. When we are skilled, when we're skilled as birthing women, and when our partner is skilled to help us cope and manage, to stay on top of and in control, then those fiddle things happen around us and to us, and we basically ignore them. We pay a little bit of attention to them, but not too much. So if someone says, lie down when you're having a contraction, I'm going to do a vaginal exam on you, we don't like it, but we use our directed breathing. We use our relaxation. Our partner gets right in our ear and models good breathing, and we get through it and we get on with it. So when we have expectations of them, obstetricians, staff, and midwives, those expectations come from the fact that we lack skills and we expect them to give us a good experience. And this is unrealistic. And this is where we have to stop with this and start with a new childbirth trend, which is to encourage everybody to become skilled. Sure, we want people to become skilled with Birthing Better resources. Why not? They were developed by families. They were used in every single type of birth. They don't direct only to natural births or pain-free labors or home births or water births or orgasmic births or conscious births or calm births or birthing within. Because we know from our vast experience, and my experience globally, is women who achieve these absolutely beautiful births. I mean, they are beautiful births, are a tiny, tiny percent of the population. Tiny percent of the population. And you know what we're left with? Us. We're left with the people who find labor painful and we have trouble coping. But when we have skills, we cope better. Us, who have long labors, when we have skills, we can reduce that long labor. You can't replay a birth, but we know inside ourselves when we're using skills that we can make certain that each contraction is effective and we don't waste one contraction after another. Because we can waste hours and hours of contractions by getting in a position that we like that our baby doesn't like. So when we expect them to give us the birth that we want, that we've planned, that we imagined, then we are barking up the wrong tree. We're making a mistake in our society because the results of that overly blown expectation of them is that we are being left now with more and more women who have birth trauma. They feel traumatized by their birth. They don't get on with it. And when a woman is traumatized by her birth or feels traumatized, she doesn't care for her baby well. She doesn't have a good relationship with the baby's parent well. She doesn't have a good relationship with herself well. And that affects the child and the family relationship. And it also puts women in a position of remaining a child with an expectation that their needs have to be met rather than their capacity to meet the needs of the baby at least and to work effectively in a partnership with the baby's parent, other parent. So we have too much birth trauma. Now I want you to know that Birthing Better families who develop these skills, many of them, they were very medically high risk when we started. Many of those families had challenging births and had a great deal of trauma in outcome or processes. However, they were not left traumatized because it wasn't an expectation of them to give or solve the problem. Because they were skilled, they worked through the birth as it was unfolding, often even knowing that there was going to be a poor outcome or a lot of trauma or a lot of anxiety for days and weeks and months afterwards. Being skilled made the difference of how we reclaimed birth. And we did reclaim birth, and we reclaimed it into a powerful place of being skilled mothers and being skilled fathers. So when you're thinking about childbirth, you need to think about what you are going to do to make your birth better for you. That's why we advocate, write 2 birth plans. Write about what you want and you don't want. So when women write about what they want and don't want, there's a whole list of those things. They're about what happens at a home birth, what happens when you enter the hospital, the behaviors around your birth, the behaviors after the birth. All these things have myriads of wants and don't wants. But the fact is that over the years, 45 years, I can honestly tell you that very few, this many birth plans go according to plan. Birth is unexpected. And I want you to know that the women who have planned this or that often couldn't care less at the time, couldn't care less afterwards, realized it was absolute nonsense. And those that really cared, really defined their care in a birth plan, often at the birth, when people encouraged them to follow their plan, said, nope, I don't want to. And then 6 months later, we're angry that those people didn't push them harder to follow their plan. That's an unrealistic expectation. And the other was that women made plans and nobody knew which was really important. So if women got 9 out of 10 things, they were pissed that they didn't get that one. Well, if everybody had known that that one was the only important thing, they would have given them, if they could, that one. If somebody is not pleasant to you, have some empathy. They may just be that way, or they may have had a tough day, or they may be exhausted. They can try to be pleasant with you, but I have seen a lot of women perceive if somebody else's behavior is unpleasant, when I, as an outsider, can say that that person is being absolutely gracious. So we have to understand that the more skilled we are, the less sensitive we are to these factors, which is good because we place much more of our energy into what we can do to birth better rather than into what they need to do to give us a better birth. So how can you help our mission, which is to grow a skilled birthing population? It's simple. Purchase a Birthing Better resource or give a donation through PayPal at info@birthingbetter.com. We are a .org, but back then when PayPal started, we could only have a birthingbetter.com address. So, and also spread the word about these Debunking the Myth videos. They're all on YouTube in a playlist. And this is going to be my last one about debunking the myths about childbirth. And I'm going to start on the truths about childbirth. And I'm going to use this list to explain the truths. Because for every myth that we have a truth that underlies that. And when we can grow that truth, then a lot of these myths are going to just disappear because we understand that birth is primarily an activity that we have to do, and that any activity that we do as humans are best done when we are skilled. And that's just the truth of it. So see again, comment. If there are any debunking the myths you want me to address, don't hesitate to be in touch. And we're always looking to help you birth better for yourself and your partner to be the best birth coach there is, because these skills were developed by mothers and fathers equally and used in absolutely every birth because your baby's birth is important. So see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.